Okay, if you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I am working on several different stories. And you may wonder, well, if I have so many stories that I'm working on, like why do I only have one published so far? So I thought I would do a video and talk about the status of all of the stories that I have going on. Now, right now I'm only working on 2 at the moment. I'm working on editing one and I'm working on drafting one, but I have other projects that are not complete yet. So I'm going to do this video about all these writing projects just in case you're curious. And I know that not everybody who watches my videos is necessarily going to want to read all the stories that I'm writing, and that's fine. I have a lot of different writer friends, and a lot of them write genres that I don't read in. So, I mean, it's totally cool. But if you're just curious about what I'm writing, if you want to know what some of my stories are about, I'm going to talk about them in this video. Okay, so I guess the first story I should probably talk about is the one that is coming up next. And if you've been following my channel, you know what it is, but that would be Thrill of the Chase. That's going to be the start of my contemporary romance series, and I'm really excited about it because I just really love this story, first of all. And this is kind of a jump from what I published before, because the first book I published was a young adult contemporary, and this is romance. And I've decided that I really need to stick to one thing to publish. And I thought that young adult contemporary were going to be like the first things that I published. But when I really thought about it, I really wanted to just start publishing my romance stuff. And so I had to pick one. So I just decided I'm going to go in this direction. I'm going to publish a lot of romance from now on. And then that doesn't mean I'm not going to publish the young adult contemporary books, but I'm just going to wait because I really feel like I'm going to have more success if I just pick one and stay in my lane for a while. You know what I mean? So the status of Thrill of the Chase is that right now it is going through copy edits. I did get the copy edits back from my editor, and I'm just going to be going through that, and I'm going to be making corrections and getting it polished and getting it ready for publication, because it's not there yet, but I've got some work to do on it. So I'm going to be doing that. And as far as the publication date for that, I don't know yet. I am shooting for maybe a September or October release date, but I haven't really set a date so far. So if you want to know when I'm going to release that, I would suggest you sign up for my mailing list on my website, which is melodyloomis.com. The link is down below, and you can go to my website. You can sign up for my mailing list, because I will let my mailing list know first when I have decided to set the release date. But I don't know when that email is going to go out because, like, again, I'm still working on stuff. But that story is on the horizon. That one's next. And right now I'm getting it ready. I'm still making some final tweaks to the cover, but the cover is looking so good. And I got to do all the, like, well, the blurb is done, but I have to do like all the launch stuff and getting ready for that. So very busy summer that I'm going to be having working on this book. And I have decided lately, see, this is how it used to be. I used to write a lot of different projects. Like, I would have multiple projects going on at the same time. And it was because I just had so many different ideas and I wanted to write them all. And it's kind of like all the stories in my head were, I just like to think that all the stories in my head were like Meredith Grey from Grey's Anatomy. Like, if you know that show and you know the episode where she's telling Derek to pick her, like, that's all the stories are saying in my head. They're just asking me to pick them. And it's so frustrating when you have so many ideas and you want to write them all. And I wish my superpower was I could write super fast, but I'm a slow writer, so that's just how it is. But once I got a few drafts written, I was able to kind of calm that down a little bit. And so now I'm just working really hard to focus on just 1 to 2 projects at a time. So this Thrill of the Chase is the editing project that I'm working on. And then, of course, the drafting project that I'm working on is the next story in that series, which is When the Ice Melts. And this is an exciting story too, but it is taking me a long time to get this one done. It is currently over 80,000 words, but it's not done yet. And I don't want to rush this one. And ideally, I would love to release this like next year. But the way things are working out, because it's a winter story, I don't think it's going to be ready in January of 2023. So I'm going to try to shoot for this one to be ready for January 2024. I know that's a long time to wait, but I would rather wait and make the story as good as I can make it. I don't want to rush releasing it. And also, I have to release it when it's winter because it does not make sense to release a winter story in the middle of summer. And what I have decided is that the next few stories that I am going to be writing are going to be the stories in this Storm series, because I have committed to this series and I want to see it through and I want to finish it. There are 6 stories in this series, which I'm not going to talk about all of the upcoming stories because I haven't even started writing them yet. And so like each story is going to focus on a different weather theme, except I am going to have like 2 tornado stories. But yeah, it's going to be 6 stories that I'm working on, and I just want to be able to finish them. And the reason why I want to see this series through is not necessarily that there's any cliffhangers or anything, because each story can be read as a standalone, but I don't want to just, start writing the stories and then, start writing another series and then writing another series and then, writing this standalone, and because I want to see the series through. I want it to be done and then have it complete and have it all on Amazon, so then people could just like totally binge read it if they want to. So that's my Storm series. So yes, the first series, Thrill of the Chase, which is the tornado story. The second story that I'm working on, When the Ice Melts, which is the winter, like blizzard, snow story. I don't know how to describe that one. Winter snowstorm story. And then the other ones I'm not going to talk about. But I think I do want to do the third story for NaNoWriMo, and I think this is the best time, because that way it'll give me the whole summer to work on all of the Thrill of the Chase launch plans, and then the whole summer to finish the first draft of When the Ice Melts. And then I'll be ready to focus on a completely new project just in time for NaNoWriMo. So I think that's my plan for that series. Okay, so moving on to my next series. I know you've heard me talk about the Rachel and Chase story, right? If you've been following my channel, you know that story. I've struggled with it. But the Rachel and Chase story is a part of, what was formerly called the Turtle Creek series. I had called it the Turtle Creek series because it's in this imaginary town called Turtle Creek. But I'm actually going to be changing that series title, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But the Rachel and Chase story was a story that I started, I think, the year before last? I think I started it in 2020, but I only got a little bit of it done. And then I started writing some of it last year. Yeah, I think I started it in 2020 and I wrote a little bit of it. And then I think I wrote a little bit more of it in 2021. And then I got like completely burned out on it. Yeah, I got burned out on that one because I was doing the launch stuff for One Big Mess and I just couldn't concentrate on it. And also I was really burned out on the story and I was blocked on the story and I changed some stuff about it. And so I've struggled with that story. But it is still a good story, and I really do think that if I do a little bit more planning with that one, it could be amazing someday. Just taking a break on it because I've just been wanting to work on some of my other stories right now. But the Rachel and Chase story actually wasn't the first story I wrote in this series. One story that I don't think I've talked about a lot on this channel is my story called Home Safe, which I sometimes also refer to as the Matt and Sarah story. So that one is the first romance novel that I wrote, and it was the second story that I queried. I queried that story out to agents because when I wrote my upper middle grade young YA story, when I I wrote that story and I queried that one, and it got rejected like a bunch of times. And so then I decided, well, if I didn't have any success with that one, maybe I would query this other story that I wrote. And so I queried this romance novel, and I did get a full request on it, which was really exciting, but it was rejected a few months after that with a, standard form rejection. It just like wasn't the right fit for their list, right? But it was okay. I was not upset. Well, I was kind of upset about it. I was upset about rejection. Of course I was. But what happened was, at the same time that all of these query rejections were, kind of winding down, and I was really starting to think that I didn't want to go to the trad pub route. I was really thinking that, I wanted to start self-publishing. So about the same time as I was thinking about maybe I don't want to query, maybe I want to self-publish, I started realizing also that this story could be part of a series. And my mistake was that I knew this was not going to be the first story in that series. And the reason I knew that was because I introduced the character of Rachel in the Matt and Sarah story, and I wanted Rachel to have her own story, and it just didn't make sense to have her story be after Matt and Sarah's. It made sense to have her story before. So, even though the first draft of the Matt and Sarah story is done, which, by the way, it still needs a lot of work because I think I need to go back and make that story a little bit stronger. I think the conflict needs to be a little bit stronger. Yeah, that's a whole other thing. So, I finished the Matt and Sarah story, and then I needed to finish the Rachel and Chase story because I knew that was going to become before the Matt and Sarah story. Now, I've also talked a little bit about my Zach and Amanda story, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But I wrote this other story, right? I wrote this other story, and I thought, hey, maybe I should make this a part of my Turtle Creek series. That would be a great idea. And what I realized is that I actually don't think that story needs to be in that series. It just doesn't really fit. It doesn't really fit. And this is why it doesn't fit, because the characters in that story don't have much of a connection to the characters in the other stories. So you see, Rachel and Sarah are elementary school teachers. And so I decided it would be fun if I had this group of female teachers. They're all friends at this elementary school, and they each get their own story. But the Zach and Amanda story didn't really fit with that because Amanda's not a teacher and she doesn't really have any connection to these other women at all. So the only connection that they really have is that Zach is a police detective, and I decided he was going to work with Chase, who's a cop. I just don't think that story needs to be in that series because it just doesn't fit. It just doesn't fit. I mean, I wouldn't say it's like fitting a square peg in a round hole. It's like more like fitting like, an octagon shaped peg into a round hole. Like it kind of fits, but like not exactly, So I've just decided to pull that story out of the series. So we're back to Rachel and Chase being story number 1, and then Matt and Sarah being story number 2. I'm going to take out the Zach and Amanda story. That's not going to be story 2. That's going to get its own series, which I'll talk about in just a minute. But yeah, since I want to focus on the teachers at Turtle Creek Elementary School, it just makes sense to rename the series The Teachers of Turtle Creek, which is perfect. So that series is going to be sometime after my Storm series, after I finish that. Because I really do think it's going to be a while before I can finish that Rachel and Chase story. That story is like so tough right now. But I think that series will be really good. And I used to be a teacher like a long time ago. And I can kind of draw from some of my experiences. And so that'll be a good series. But it's going to be a while before I get that done. But the Rachel and Chase story is still a work in progress. And the Matt and Sarah story, first draft is done. I mean, the first draft is done enough. It was done enough for me to query it. I thought it was good, but now looking back at it, I know I can do more with that. Okay, so I guess now I should talk about the Zach and Amanda story. And this is a story that I wrote right before the pandemic. In December of 2019, I came up with the idea for this story. And I swear, y'all, I came up with the idea before we went in lockdown. It's crazy, but I came up with this story about this woman who could not leave the house, okay? She's traumatized by something, and she cannot leave the house, and she's got like PTSD and like agoraphobia and like all this trauma that she has gone through, and then we went in lockdown. So I finished the first draft of this story sometime in early 2020 when we were in lockdown. And I gotta tell y'all, I got like so many good ideas because, you know, when we were in lockdown and people were like trying to find things to do, like they were cooking more, you know, and they were getting house projects done and like all these different things. And I was like, you know, I'm getting so many ideas for this story. And and there's no like pandemic or anything in my story, but I did want to create this character who was very fearful of leaving the house. So I finished the first draft of the story, but now I know I need to go back to it because I got a few details wrong with like with Zach, who is a police detective, and like I gave him a patrol car because I wanted to have like the patrol car like parked in his driveway because Zach is her next door neighbor. So I wanted to have like his police car, like his patrol car parked in the driveway, and like, you know, just how comforting is it to know that, you know, a cop is next door and you don't have to worry about someone breaking into your house because there's a cop next door, right? But when I got to think about it, I'm like, I don't think police detectives drive around in patrol cars. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I really don't think they do. And I know that they don't dress in police uniforms. Like they dress in plain clothes, right? Because they're detectives. They're not usually the first characters that are on the scene of a crime. They're actually like the second ones on the scene of the crime because they're the ones who solve the crimes, you know? The patrol cops are the ones that are first on the scene, and detectives come in later. And so I got some details wrong. I didn't get that detail wrong, but I just really don't think that he's going to be driving around in a patrol car, you know? I mean, maybe he's got like a Kojak light. I think that's what it's called, a Kojak light. I think he's got maybe one of those in his car. But anyway, there's little things that I need to go back and make sure I get the facts right. And then I also want to make sure that I add some more details because as the pandemic has gone on, all these things are more common. Like there's more things we can do online, like, you know, order groceries online and all this other stuff. And in the story, because I started the story before the pandemic. In the story, I had her mother just go do her grocery shopping for her. And that really wasn't like grocery delivery wasn't really much of a thing then. And after I finished the first draft of it, I was thinking, oh my gosh, you know, everyone's like ordering their groceries online. Like that's like perfect for my character who cannot leave the house. So I got to go back and add that idea in there. But like, yeah, the pandemic gave me like so many ideas for that story for like people who cannot leave the house or do not want to leave the house. So yeah, I'm looking forward to being able to work on that story some more. However, I've already decided that story is not going to be the first in the series, of course, because here's the thing. When I was writing the story, I introduced a character because I wanted Amanda to have a friend because she doesn't have many friends because she doesn't really leave the house. But I wanted her to have a friend, so I don't want to go into the details of the story right now. But in my story, the character of Lexi is introduced, and she also had the same traumatic experience that Amanda had. And so then I got to thinking, hey, maybe I should write Lexi's story. So, guess what? I'm going to write Lexi's story. So, Lexi's story is actually going to be story number 1 in that series. It's going to be like, I think I'm going to call it like the Survivor series or something. But anyway, Lexi's story is going to be number 1. Amanda's story is going to be story number 2. And there was another character that was introduced in Amanda's story as well. So I think she would be the perfect for the 3rd story in the series. Because I feel like if you're going to have a series, you should at least have 3 books. Like, I think at least 3 books for a series is perfect. So that will be another series that I'll be working on. So just in case you're wondering how many stories all of this is. So Storm series is 6 stories. And then the Teachers of Turtle Creek, I'm thinking it's going to be at least 4 stories. And then the Survivor series is going to be 3 stories. So that's a lot of stories, and that's not even all the ideas in my head. Okay, but now there's one more I want to talk about, and that is the Anna series. And I know I have talked about this one a lot of times in my videos, and so you're probably wondering, well, what is the status of that? And that is just on hiatus for now. I do want to publish them eventually, but I do not know when that's going to be, but it's on hiatus for now. And that series, I know is going to be pretty long. I originally intended it to be 6th through 8th grade, but now I think I might even want to extend it to high school. But I just don't want to focus on YA right now. I just don't, because I really want to focus more on the romance. But that being said, that story is still near and dear to my heart, and I do want to eventually finish it because I think it's a really cute coming of age series, you know. So currently right now, the first story in the series, the 6th grade one, is going under a major revision, and that story is going to be completely different from what it started out as, but still going to be, it's kind of similar, but I'm changing it up a bit to make it better. And so that one's just, it's gonna take a while, but, and it's not that it's very long, but it's just gonna take a while. And then I've got the 7th grade story. The first draft of that one is finished, but I'm gonna have to go back and make changes to that 2nd story because I'm making changes to the 1st story. And then the 3rd story in the series, the summer story, which I have talked maybe a little bit about, that one is still incomplete. Like, the first draft is still incomplete, but the first draft is very close to being done with that one. I remembered I had to stop because I got so burned out on that story, but that one's actually mostly done. But because I knew that the first story in the series was going to go over like this complete overhaul, I decided it was not worth my time to finish that story at the moment. So that one is just on hold for now. I'm still just kind of, you know, waiting till it's the right time to publish that one, and now is really not the right time. But that is the first story I queried, the 6th grade changes story, the very first story in that series. That's the one I queried. That was my very first novel that I finished, and it took me over the course of 10 years to finish that book, which I was not working on it the whole time. But that one took a long, long time to finish. And they say you should never publish your first novel because it might have problems, and I don't know if I agree with that. I think you can still publish your first novel, but you gotta make sure that your novel is ready, and that one is definitely not ready. I'm glad that I didn't publish that one first because I was gonna publish that one first. That was gonna be the first one I published. And then I changed my mind because I feel like once I started getting all the rejections for that one, I knew there was something wrong with it. And then from there, I just started working on other stories, and I kind of moved on from it. But I still want to finish that story. I want to make it better so I can publish it. So I don't know how long I've been talking, but I've been talking for a really long time, and I think I've covered most of my stories. Let's see, have I? Okay, oh, there's one more. There is one more. I wrote another story. It was a middle grade story, and I actually did finish the first draft of that one. I wrote that one I think that was maybe the 3rd novel that I wrote, because I finished the Anna story first, the first Anna novel. And then I wrote the Matt and Sarah story, and then I wrote this story about a girl named Judy. And I did finish the first draft of that story, but when I went to read that first draft, it was really, really bad. And it needs so much work. That story, I don't even know if I'm going to publish that one or not. I don't know. That one just might be stuck on my computer forever. I don't know. But I did finish that one. And so I don't know, we'll see. I'll see if what I want to do with that one later. But again, like I say, I'm just not really ready to focus on like middle grade and young adult stuff right now, because I really want to focus on the adult romance. And I'm really just, because that's really what I want to write. That's like what I like to read. I mean, I like to read a whole lot of different things, but like that's my favorite thing. Like if I had to make a choice, if I could only write one thing like forever, like if I had to pick like young adult contemporaries or contemporary romance, like adult contemporary romance, like which one would I choose? And you know, I would choose the romance. So there you go. So that's the one I'm going to write for now. And I do think that's the one that's going to make more money. So if you can write something that you love and you know it's going to make money at the same time, that's like the best thing, right? Because you want to write what you love, you want to write to market to, but sometimes that doesn't always, sometimes what you want to write doesn't always, there's not always a market for it, but I know there's definitely a market for romance. So I have got so many stories to work on, and so I'm going to go ahead and end this video now because my voice is getting kind of like, it's getting hard to talk because I've been talking for probably an hour now. But anyway, thank you so much for watching my video. Please give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, or give me a thumbs up if you've actually made it this far too. And I'll see y'all next time. Bye!